Behalf of the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana, ladies and gentlemen of the press. A warm welcome to us all to this morning's press briefing, a joint press briefing with the IMF and the Bank of Ghana. Indeed, Saturdays are very precious in this part of the world, so we do not take it lightly that you have taken time off your busy social schedules to be with us this morning for this very important joint press briefing. Today's press briefing essentially comes on the back of the IMF issuing a press release about having reached staff level agreement with the government of Ghana for the second review. So we will start today's meeting with an opening prayer, and I'll call on Mr. Prosper Awuni, a senior economics officer. At the Economics Research Division of the Ministry of Finance. Prosper.
Hello. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you this morning. We thank you for the life of our minister. We thank you for the life of the governor, the deputy governors. We thank you for the life of our Minister of State and deputy ministers. We thank you for the life of our chief director, and we thank you for the life of the staff and ministry of Ministry Homes. And we commit this morning's press briefing into your hand. We are very grateful for bringing us this far. A lot of work went to achieving a staff level agreement, but you made it a success. We pray that this media session will be a success, and at the end of the day, glory and honor will be given unto your name. In Jesus' name I've prayed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mr. Awuni. I will now introduce the principals for this press briefing. We have at the center of the table the Honorable Minister for Finance, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, MP for Karaga, who has been leading this entire effort. To his immediate right, we have the Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison. And to his right, we have the Honorable Minister for State Designate, Honorable Mrs. Abna Osei Asari. To the left of the Honorable Minister, we have Mr. Stefan Rode, IMF Mission Chief. And to his left, we have Mr. Leo Medina, IMF Resident Rep for Ghana. My name is Ruth Botio. I'm part of the communication teams at the Ministry of Finance. And again, a warm welcome to everyone. We will start today's briefing with brief remarks from Mr. Stefan Rode, IMF Mission Chief. Stefan.
Thank you, Ruth. Good morning, everyone. Akwaba, thank you so much for being with us this morning. I want to start by thanking the Honourable Minister for hosting this press conference. My IMF colleagues and I have been in Accra for a couple of weeks now on a mission to assess performance under the Ghanaian authorities' 3-year IMF-supported program, which was approved by our executive board in May 2023. The program is designed to have 6 monthly reviews, and the current mission is intended for the second review of the program. During the mission, but also even before, we have been engaging very closely with the authorities on program implementation, and I'm very pleased to announce this morning that we have reached a staff-level agreement on the second review of the program. Let me add that this agreement is subject to the approval by the IMF management and our executive board once the necessary financing assurances have been received.
An agreement between the Ghanaian authorities and their official creditors on a memorandum of understanding for the debt treatment, and debt treatment consistent with the agreement in principle that was reached in January 2025, would provide these needed assurances. Once the IMF Executive Board completes the second review of the program, Ghana would have access to about $360 million, bringing the total IMF financial support disbursed under the arrangement since May 2023 to $1.6 billion.
Before you hear from the Honorable Minister and the Governor, and we take some of your questions, allow me to provide a brief overview of the key points
discussed during the mission. First, our assessment is that performance under the program has been generally strong and consistent with the authorities' commitments. Most of the quantitative targets were met, and good progress is being made on the key structural reform milestones under the program. Most importantly, the authorities' strong policy and reform efforts to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability, to lay the foundations for stronger and more inclusive growth, are already generating positive results. In other words, the program is working. Economic activity in 2023 was more robust than we initially envisaged. Growth projections are about to be revised in the context of the program, especially for this year in 2024. On the fiscal front, the government has adjusted the policy stance to bring about a reduction in deficits and to restore the sustainability of public finances. Our assessment is that fiscal performance has been strong, and Ghana has lowered the fiscal primary deficit by over 4 percentage points of GDP in 2023, and it is on track to achieve a primary surplus of 0.5% of GDP in 2024. I believe it's the first time in a long time that Ghana would manage to have a primary surplus. The government has met its non-oil revenue mobilization target last year. It has also kept spending within the budget limits. The authorities have also expanded and significantly the social protection programs to help mitigate the crisis impact on the most vulnerable population. The government is committed to providing additional support going forward by undertaking reforms to improve the operational efficiency of those programs and by expanding their coverage and the resources allocated to the program. On the monetary policy front, we can say that monetary policy has remained appropriately tight, and that has allowed inflation to decline rapidly. On the external sector side, there has been a significant improvement, and in particular, international reserve accumulation is ahead of the program objectives. Financial stability has been preserved, and banks posted solid profits in 2023. The GFSF, the Ghana Financial Stability Fund, has started its operations, and some of the banks have already been recapitalized with the resources of this fund. In terms of the next steps, and given Ghana's strong progress under the program, it is important that the authorities reach agreement with their official creditors on this memorandum of understanding that I talked about earlier. And we look forward to the authorities' continued efforts to reach this agreement, and the other creditors as well, in line with the program parameters. To conclude, let me say that there's, of course, still much ground to cover and plenty of work ahead of us. But I think what makes us very optimistic is that the reform efforts are already generating positive results. And let me stop here and allow me to thank the Honourable Minister, Bank of Ghana Governor Addison, and their teams, as well as representatives from the various government agencies, as well as the non-governmental stakeholders that we met with in the context of this mission, for the very open and constructive engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Up next, we'll take remarks from the Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison.
Thank you very much, Ruth.
A minute, Governor. Thank you. We'll give the media a minute to get their microphones in order. Meanwhile, may I please remind us all to put our phones on silent if we haven't already done so. We are streaming live on Joy and on the Ministry of Finance Facebook page, as well as the Ministry of Information Facebook page. Thank you again to our media partners. Thank you, media. We'll now take the governor's remarks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ruth, and thank you, Stefan, for those opening remarks. Let me thank you and your team from the IMF who have spent the last 2 weeks with us, poring over numbers and discussing matters to move our economy forward. We are happy that this effort has not been in vain, and we are ending the mission with a staff-level agreement, which we hope will translate into a management and executive board approval for the release of another tranche of IMF support. We have shown steadfast commitment to a set of policies right from the beginning under very difficult circumstances, and we have reached a stage where program implementation is progressing well. You would recollect we completed the first review of the ECF program in the latter part of last year, and today we are on the verge of completing the second review with steadfast implementation of our policy measures. With substantial progress in these measures, we are beginning to reap substantial macroeconomic dividends. Inflation has dropped significantly from a peak of 54% at the end of 2022 to 23% in 2023. The exchange rate remained relatively stable throughout last year, supported by tighter monetary policy and stronger foreign exchange reserves. Economic growth has surprised on the upside. During the first quarter of this year, this progress has continued, although we have witnessed some slowdown in the pace of disinflation, primarily due to a variety of factors, including adverse base drift effects. The expectation, however, is for the disinflation process to resume in the second quarter of 2024 and beyond, driven by continued maintenance of a tight monetary policy stance. Our expectation for end-year inflation of 15 plus or minus 2% remains unchanged. We have also continued to strengthen our foreign exchange reserve buffers, and our current account balance has improved. Despite the delays in disbursement of some donor support, our foreign exchange reserves have remained steady and is reported at $6.2 billion as of 5th April 2024. We will continue to implement the policies that have helped sustain that progress, including the innovative Gold for Reserves program, which has acted as a game changer in our foreign exchange management strategies. During the period while the mission was here, we have also addressed some burning issues, including the impact of the DDEP on the balance sheet of the Bank of Ghana, and we have reached broad understandings on early recapitalization of the Bank of Ghana, and a memorandum of understanding between the Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance will be signed to this effect. We have also discussed progress in the external debt restructuring program of the government and the ongoing discussions with commercial creditors, bondholders, and bilateral creditors. Overall, on all sides, we have reached a conclusion that we must continue with steadfast program implementation of policies, continue with the fiscal rectitude, continue with the tight monetary policy stance, and pursue the necessary structural reforms to underpin the sustainability of the progress we are making. On the IMF side, we expect some degree of flexibility to reflect changing dynamics in the Ghanaian economy. To conclude, in Ghana's recent history, we have not been able to successfully implement an IMF-supported program in an election year without derailment. The government and the central bank are committed to changing that narrative. We recognize the importance of continued macroeconomic stability and an early return to the capital markets, and we will remain committed to ensure that the program implementation stays firm. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Governor of the Central Bank, and thank you also to Stefan. We will be taking the remarks of the Honorable Minister for Finance, and I ask the media to please assemble their microphones quickly. We're also streaming live on the Bank of Ghana website, on Net2, and also on Ghana Web Online. Thank you. Minister, we're ready for you, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ruth. And I'd like to start by expressing my gratitude and the gratitude of the government and the Ministry of Finance in particular, and my team, to the IMF, Stefan and his team, for a great working relationship and collaboration that we've enjoyed during the course of the mission. Let me also thank the governor and his team for the partnership we have continued to share, even as the bank remains independent of us. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I want to thank you for honoring our invitation to join us today for an update on the outcome of the second review of the IMF-supported post-COVID-19 for economic growth. Nearly a year ago, Ghana received approval of the 3-year, $3 billion IMF-supported PCPEG under an extended credit facility. The objective of the program is to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability, to build resilience through the implementation of wide-ranging policies, as well as strong structural reforms, and to lay the foundation for stronger and more inclusive growth, whilst protecting the poor and the vulnerable. The effective implementation of the PCPEG is yielding some good results, as we are now witnessing relative macroeconomic stability and seeing signs of economic recovery. Since program approval in May 2023, we have successfully implemented macroeconomic policies characterized by fiscal consolidation, involving aggressive revenue mobilization, underpinned by a medium-term revenue strategy, and expenditure rationalization measures, complemented by tight monetary policies by the Bank of Ghana, as well as macro-critical structural reforms in key sectors of the economy to support fiscal debt sustainability and inclusive growth. All of this have, over the course of 1 year, resulted in more than anticipated growth performance in GDP growth, with GDP ending 2023 at 2.9%, compared to the original target of 1.5% and the revised target of 2.3%. And as the governor expressed earlier, inflation has also declined considerably, and the cedi has relatively stabilized over the course of this period. The fiscal balances are also improving, indicating a strong drive towards fiscal consolidation.
the primary balance on commitment basis, which is the fiscal anchor under the program, improved from a deficit of 4.3% of GDP at the end of 2022 to a deficit of 0.3% of GDP at the end of 2023. The 2023 outturn was lower, far lower than the target deficit of 0.5% of GDP. The Monetary Policy Committee maintained the monetary policy rate at 29% at the 117th MPC meeting, which ended on the 25th of March 2024. Given the slowing pace of disinflation and rising pressures from upward revisions in transport fares, adjustments in utility tariffs, and some pass-through of exchange rate depreciation. We've also seen the gross international reserve growing stronger. And then on the public debt front, we've seen the trajectory as the trajectory improving as the debt to GDP ratio reduced to 71.4% of GDP at the end of 2023 from 73.5% of GDP at the end of 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, this remarkable performance was strongly supported by the successful completion of the staff first review in September 2023, which resulted in a staff level agreement, reaching an agreement with the official creditor committee on debt relief consistent with the parameters and objectives of the program on the 12th of January 2024. And then, of course, the IMF Executive Board approval of the first review on 19th January 2024, with subsequent disbursement of $600 million. The IMF Executive Board acknowledged our strong policy and reform commitment, noting that signs of economic stabilization were emerging. Ladies and gentlemen, today I am pleased to say that we have built upon that progress and taken further steps towards achieving our objectives set out in the program. The progress we have made is an indication of our shared determination and commitment to return the economy back to the path of macroeconomic stability and inclusive growth. It is with this great pleasure that I also want to add to the announcement by Stefan that Ghana has successfully reached staff level agreement on the second review. The second review was based on key performance indicators, including 6 quantitative performance criteria, 3 indicative targets, and 1 structural benchmark, which were due at the end of December 2023, but also 4 structural benchmarks, which were due at the end of March 2024. We have also observed, in spite of the successes we have chalked, that there are areas that we need to pay more attention to, particularly the energy sector and the cocoa sector. For the energy sector in particular, we've discussed the possibility of ensuring that the shortfall in the sector is reduced. The reforms we are pursuing will continue to be implemented, including new ones. We will, for example, conduct a sector-wide audit of the energy sector. We will strengthen the implementation of the cash waterfall mechanism, and we will review the PURC tariff setting methodology to ensure that we reduce or eliminate discretion, and also to make the formula and the process of tariff setting more transparent. On the cocoa sector, we'll continue to pay attention to the cost-cutting measures being implemented by Cocoa Board, as well as continue to rationalize the cocoa root sector in order to make more resources available to complete the uncompleted road projects. Ladies and gentlemen, the staff level agreement on the second review we have secured marks a significant milestone towards unlocking the disbursement of the third tranche of $360 million under the program, once the IMF Executive Board favorably considers and approves the second review of the of the fire program, possibly in June 2024. I would like to thank the Almighty Allah for his blessings and for his continuous guidance and the strength he has bestowed upon us in executing this all-important national assignment. I extend my sincere appreciation also to His Excellency the President for his visionary leadership and unwavering commitment, and to His Excellency the Vice President for his invaluable support. I also like to recognize the instrumental role played by the IMF throughout this period. Our profound thanks go to the IMF Managing Director, Ms. Kristalina, who visited Ghana recently, and through that visit demonstrated to the whole world the strong relationship between Ghana and the IMF. Let me also thank particularly Stefan Rodert and his team for their ongoing commitment to supporting Ghana's economic recovery. The successful implementation of the program objectives so far would not have been possible without the collective efforts and dedication of Parliament, civil society, organizations, organized labor, FBOs, employer associations, sector ministers, as well as the staff of the various ministries, departments, and agencies. Of course, the financial sector players and the private sector players also need to be commended. We also extend our gratitude to the World Bank and other development partners for their ongoing collaboration and support. Let me also extend my heartfelt gratitude to the dedicated team at the Ministry of Finance and those at the Bank of Ghana. Their expertise, dedication, and resilience have been the driving force behind securing the staff level agreement with the fund staff on this day, the 12th of April, actually 13th of April 2024. As we forge ahead, we remain committed to the effective implementation of the IMF program and ensuring sustained growth and stability of the Ghanaian economy. With the support of all stakeholders, we are confident in our ability to achieve our objectives and to build a stronger and more resilient nation. Ghana's medium-term macroeconomic outlook and prospects continue to be positive and promising, with the government maintaining its commitment to implementing comprehensive structural reforms to support growth, to improve the PFM systems, to improve revenue mobilization, and support sound monetary and exchange policies. We have also put in place sufficient control and monitoring mechanisms to ensure key targets under the IMF-supported program are met, even though 2024 is an election year. Ladies and gentlemen, if you recall, on assumption of duty as minister, I promised my commitment to the full implementation of the IMF program, notwithstanding the fact that we have faced some challenges. We will continue to ensure that the program is on course. I also promise that I will hold the line when it comes to expenditure in this election year. Most election years, expenditures have become reckless. This year, we are going to hold the line and ensure that we do not embark on extra budgetary spending in order to ensure that the fiscal balances we've negotiated, particularly those in this year's budget, are met at the end of the fiscal year. Ladies and gentlemen, our success at reaching a staff level agreement demonstrates more than enough this commitment that I continue to express to the people of Ghana. Let me take this opportunity at this point to once again express our gratitude to all stakeholders, including the Bank of Ghana, the IMF, the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank, other multilateral lenders, and our bilateral partners, and the good people of Ghana for their unwavering support and commitment as we build on the gains to transform our beloved country. I thank you, and may God bless our country.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your remarks. And in summary, Minister has told us that the nation has built on the progress and taken further steps towards achieving the program objectives. And as announced by the IMF Mission Chief, indeed, we have reached staff level agreement on the second review of the IMF program. And finally, that we remain committed to the effective implementation of the program to growth and stability. And it is election year, but the finance minister has assured us that government will hold the line on expenditure. Thank you, Honorable Minister. It is now time for questions, and we invite the media to indicate if they would like to ask a question. Please keep your questions brief. One question per journalist. Please identify yourself, your name, and your media house. Thank you. We have George, please.
My name is George Yafe from Joy FM. To Stefan Rode, the bit about the reaching the agreement with the external creditors, does it include the negotiations with the Eurobond holders? And looking at the time that you also have to go to the board, can all these things be finalized before going to the board? I want some clarity on that one. Earlier on, when it comes to the Bank of Ghana financing, you were able to reach some level of agreement with the Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance. With respect to the election-related spending, do you think that it should move beyond the assurance to also kind of an agreement with government so that you are sure that you look at the cycle over the previous years, our biggest challenge has been the extra spending in election year, so that at least the program is quite stabilized going forward. On revenue.
Thank you, George. You asked two questions. Thank you. We'll take the next set of questions. One question, please.
Good morning, Minister. My name is Joshua from the BNFT. This question goes to the mission chief. So in your statement, you did mention that most of the quantitative areas were met, but one of the areas that which the minister did mention had to do with the cocoa and the energy sector. My question to you is that what is your assessment of the effort that has been made so far within these two sectors, given what we've experienced in the short while with regards to particularly the energy sector? If you could just give us some indications of that.
Thank you, Joshua. One final question.
Good morning. My name is Manuel Bruce from Graphic. My question goes to Honorable Minister. At the last economic update, you indicated that the government were exploring other alternative measures to plug the 1.8 billion revenue loophole as a result of the suspension of the VAT on electricity. I wanted to find out if this conversation featured in your discussions with the IMF, and have you agreed on any alternative measures yet to plug this hole?
Thank you very much, Emmanuel from Graphic. So in summary, Stefan, I think there were three questions for you about the role of the agreement with the bondholders in taking our program to the board, and then also election year spending. What arrangements have been made to help ensure that government holds the line? And then we have a question on cocoa and the energy sector, that what is your assessment of the gains that the government has made in these sectors? And Honorable Minister, there is one question for you, asking what alternative revenue measures the government has explored to plug the revenue gap. Stefan, we'll come to you first. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. So let me take first the question that has to do with debt restructuring issues. I think maybe I'll start just by reminding you, providing a broad overview of where we started from a place where the government had laid out a very comprehensive strategy to restructure its debt. And at every step of the way, we needed to have some progress made on the debt strategy for us to be able to bring the reviews to the program first, and then the first review to the board. And so if you look back now, the domestic debt restructuring has been completed. When it comes to the external debt, a lot of progress has been made in the discussions with bilateral creditors. An agreement in principle has been reached in January, and the authorities have accelerated, most recently over the past few months, engagement with commercial creditors and bondholders in particular. If you look forward, what I refer to in terms of what we need to go to the board refers to the engagement with the bilateral creditors. It's about formalizing the agreement in principle and agreeing on a memorandum of understanding so that we can, proceed with the board meeting. What we can say on that is that very good progress is being made, and we are quite confident that this will be done in a timely manner. As far as the bondholders are concerned, what we need is to continue to see progress similar to what we have seen in recent months. The standard for us to be able to go to the board is that the government makes good faith effort to reach an agreement that is compatible with the program objectives and the program parameters. And this is definitely what we are seeing at the current juncture. Election spending, I think the minister has been very clear about that, acknowledging that past electoral cycles have not been very conducive to keeping spending and keeping the fiscal on track, in check. But what do we see at the current juncture? I think what we see, if you look back, is a program that is on track, targets that have been met, commitments that have been fulfilled, and that gives us some comfort. At the same time, if you look forward, we have still very, very strong commitments from the Ghanaian authorities. You heard from the minister as soon as he took office that he explained very clearly his commitment to the program objectives. And we also heard that from, at all levels of the government. That also gives us great comfort. As far as the cocoa and energy sectors are concerned, these are two sectors where, of course, there are challenges that the government is trying to navigate. Let me start with the cocoa sector. In each mission, when we have been here, we have spent a lot of time engaging with COCOBOD, and the main angle of our discussions is to ensure that COCOBOD's finances are on a sustainable track, while, of course, they implement policies to address the structural challenges that are being faced in the sector. And we have continued the discussions in the context of this mission. We understand that the government and COCOBOD are committed to ensuring that their activities, such as quasi-fiscal activities that have a bearing on their finances, are being curtailed and kept within an envelope that would ensure that their finances are sustainable, that they can continue to operate with sustainable finances. As far as the energy sector is concerned, the minister has made a reference to the energy sector shortfall. There is still, of course, a big gap between what the power sector is able to collect in terms of the bills and that are being collected on electricity sales, and the underlying cost in the sector. And so the whole program was designed in a way that this shortfall would be, first of all, brought to light more transparently in the context of the budget. This is what you have seen now over the past 2 budget cycles. And second, that shortfall will be reduced over time. And we are seeing that this has been done. This has been done through implementation of tariff increases last year, significant tariff increases. And this is also being done through implementation of reforms that are really aimed at reducing commercial losses in the sector and reducing technical losses. That requires deep underlying structural reforms that have been laid out in the ESRP document that the government published, I believe, in September, which was also a commitment under the program. So this is where we are. We had an opportunity to discuss all of that and the progress being made in the context of this mission. We are comfortable that the shortfall can be kept in line with what we had in mind in the context of the program, and we are comfortable that the reforms are being implemented in a way that is also consistent with the program.
Thank you very much, Stefan. We'll take the next set of questions, please.
Yes, let me respond to that.
Oh, sorry. Pardon me, Minister.
Let me respond to the revenue gap, the 1.8 billion cedi revenue gap. And I'm happy the Commissioner General of Ghana Revenue Authority is here with us. I'll call her to add some responses to what I will give. And so we all recall the reason government had to suspend the implementation of VAT on electricity consumption for residential consumers And that created a gap, a revenue gap of about 1.8 billion Ghana cedis. And when you have a revenue gap, it means that you will miss out on your fiscal targets in the budget. And so you have to do something about it. One way to address this is expenditure rationalization. But if you do expenditure rationalization, you still will not be able to meet one of the important fiscal targets under the program, and that is the debt service to revenue ratio. And so you need to be able to fill in the gap in order for you not to miss out on that very important target of the program. And so we had to look at alternative measures to generate more revenue to fill in that gap. And so for those alternative measures, some of which were announced in the budget statement of 2023 and also 2024, but were not effectively implemented. And so now we are determined to effectively implement these measures to generate the desired revenue to fill in the gap created as a result of the suspension of the VAT. Now, what this means is that when we take a decision as a government which borders on our fiscal framework, there are consequences. And the consequences could be dire unless we are proactive enough to find ways to fill in the gap and avoid those consequences. One of the consequences could be that you miss out on the target, the fiscal targets, and the IMF program then suffers. And the country is then returned to challenges, economic challenges that we all have been trying to prevent since we signed on to this program. The other consequences could be for people to pay more taxes. And we are determined to go out there and collect the taxes from those who have not been paying. Those who have been evading taxes, we are going to go after them. And we are also pursuing reforms within the tax administration to ensure that proper assessments are done and people pay the right taxes that they have to pay to the state. But as far as these specific measures, I will invite the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority to add flavor to the points I have raised earlier. And so, Madam Julie,
yes, sir.
I vacate my seat for you.
Oh no, Minister,
in the
please,
interim.
Minister, please let me. Yeah, please. This is a very hot seat. But thank you so much. Standing on all protocols. We will specifically speak to the measure that is replacing the VAT on electricity. As Minister said, the measure that we have to put in place has to be a sustainable, clearly defined measure to replace the 1.8 and beyond. So the measure that we put in place is a compliance measure on foreign income of resident Ghanaians. Resident Ghanaians, please, resident Ghanaians. Okay. This measure is already in the law, as Minister said, so it is not a new measure. The difference is that its implementation and application has not been implemented effectively. So in order for us to implement this measure, we have gone through with the aid and assistance of the OECD, gone through credible and sustainable processes and structures to ensure that when we implement this measure, the sustainability of this measure is going to go beyond 2024 in our revenue numbers. So this is the measure that, together with GOG and our mother ministry, the Ministry of Finance, is going to take place or is going to replace the VAT on electricity. And we're not hopeful, we're confident on the sustainability of this measure and its credibility to replace the 1.8 billion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam CG, Ms. Julie Esiam. I'm sure we'll be hearing more from the GRA as they do more sensitization about this measure. We'll take the next set of questions. Please, let's make it brief. We're almost out of time. One question each, please.
One question. Thank you very much. My name is Eko. I correspond for Bloomberg. So I have one for Finance Minister. Finance Minister, commercial bondholders are adamant about a value recovery instrument, and I know government is opposed to including a value recovery instrument in your debt negotiations. What is the status of that, and is that not what is delaying, so to say, your negotiations?
Thank you, Eko.
One question for Rude.
One question for the whole panel.
Cocoa, part of the problem with Cocoa Board is that they subsidize farmers during periods where the cocoa price is not doing well internationally. And that's part of what has built up to what you're seeing today. Do you think that calling for government to stop fixing cocoa prices and allow demand and supply to determine, thereby cutting off the subsidy that I know that the fund doesn't really support, would that be any option that will be free to consider? Thank you.
Thank you, Eko. I'm only allowing the first question. I'll see if Stefan wants to take the second. We'll take the next question, please.
I'm Maxwell Adumbile from Reuters. To Governor and Rode, Governor said that they expect flexibility from the fund to reflect changing dynamics in the Ghanaian economy. Governor, could you expatiate exactly what those flexibilities are that you expect, and what are they hinged on? And relating that to the question Eko just asked, those flexibilities are as a result of gains being made in the economy, for which reason the bondholders are asking for the value recovery instruments. How do we request the fund to take this into consideration in giving flexibility and still negotiate with the bondholders without requesting, taking to their request for a value recovery instrument? Thank you.
Thank you, Maxwell. Final question, please. George wants to have another chance. Let's give it to him.
Still, this question is to the Governor. In respect to your end-of-year inflation target, you're saying that despite all the blips that we are seeing now, there's a possibility that transport fares could go up. There are still projections that fuel prices will go up. Taking into effect the first round effect and the second round effect, would you still end the year with up to 15% inflation target? Thank you.
Thank you, George. So I'll summarize the questions briefly. There's a question about the status of our negotiations with the commercial bondholders. Minister, that is for you. And there was another question related to that, which was asking that the flexibility that we stated is expected in these negotiations, what is the flexibility hinged on? There was a question about cocoa sector, which I'm making optional because there was a second question. And then finally, end of year inflation target for you, Governor. Do we still expect to maintain the target that we have set? Before I hand over to the Minister to answer the first question about the status of the negotiations, I'll just say to the media that the negotiations are ongoing and they are covered by an NDA, so we're limited in what we can say. So I hope you understand, but I'll leave Minister to respond. Minister, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And Ruth, as you rightly said, the negotiations are ongoing, and over the last 2 months, we'll be more aggressive in our negotiation with the commercial creditors and the bond holders, the Eurobond holders. And we are very confident that if things go the way they are, we certainly will reach a deal at some point. But what is significant is that in all these negotiations, we are mindful about the fiscal targets. We are mindful about the debt sustainability targets because we do not want to reach a deal which falls outside the program targets for debt sustainability. And this is guiding all the negotiations that we are doing with our bondholders. Let me say that the NDA we have signed with the bondholders is supposed to expire somewhere on Monday, and we'll provide updates at the end of the NDA on the progress we have made, the working formula we have and our determination to continue to negotiate to the level where we can have a deal that is acceptable to all of us, but that also does not deviate from the IMF program targets for debt sustainability. So this is what I can say for now.
Thank you very much, Minister. Stefan, would you like to add something to that?
No, I don't have anything to add to that, but I'm happy to take on the two other questions. The first one on the cocoa and the question of subsidies. You may remember that in the Memorandum of Economic and Financial Policies that underpin the first review of the program, the government had committed to set prices for farmers in a way that really balances two objectives. One is to ensure that farmers have enough income to encourage production, to make sure that they have that they can live in decent circumstances, but also at the same time balances the objective of having cocoa board finances that are kept on the sound footing. And so this is what the program is about, and this is what we are discussing, especially in light of the recent decision to increase prices by 58%, the decision that was taken last week. So the discussions during this mission were about, okay, let's look at the new price, let's look at what are the implications for cocoa board, what type of adjustment can be made to make sure that the cash flow projection remain broadly consistent with what we had discussed in the past, and this is what we have done, and this is what we have achieved during this mission. As far as the general policies of subsidies are concerned, our view is that the cost of those should not be borne by cocoa board, and so hence the idea that throughout the program period the cocoa road program would be phased out, and the other types of subsidies that cocoa board is providing would also be phased out, so that over time, if such activities are being conducted, cocoa board should be compensated for those by the government. Flexibility on the program. I just want to. The big picture here is that really reviews are meant to assess performance under the program, but they're also meant to discuss the current economic circumstances, adjust policies here and there to make sure that given the current economic circumstances, given the projection and the revised projection, the objectives of the program are still within reach. And so during the last review, some of you may remember that we had that BOG was overperforming on the reserve front. And we agreed that some of that overperformance should be locked in, and this has been the case. Not only this has been the case, but the Bank of Ghana actually overperformed even those objectives that we had set at the time of the first review. But of course, when economic circumstances, and this is the case at the current juncture, given what is happening in the cocoa sector, the lower production, we also have to adjust the program objectives in a way that is consistent with the current circumstances. As long as the endpoint and the overall program objectives of restoring macroeconomic stability, of achieving all of the targets, including that George, you were referring to, the 15% inflation by the end of the year, remain achievable. And that's where we are at the current juncture, and that's where we have reached staff level agreement.
Thank you very much, Stefan. We'll now move to Governor to respond to the question on inflation, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that Stefan has more or less answered the question that was asked by Maxwell. Really, the whole idea was to give you a sense of some of the discussions that we had, over the past 2 weeks that the fund has been here. If you look at the fund program that we have a monetary policy consultation clause, right, which defines bands for the inflation outcome. So one of the issues that we discussed was the fact that we are doing better than forecasted in terms of the inflation. If we were to strictly go by the rules under the monetary policy consultation plan, we need to sort of try to explain why we are doing better than the original, path for inflation was. So these are some of the issues where at least the fund has exercised that flexibility. We all agree that maybe we shouldn't be interpreting the lower part of that consultation clause as strongly as we would if we were on the other side. If we were doing badly in terms of, the inflation outcomes, then probably the issue of a consultation with the fund will become more imperative. So those were the kinds of discussions that we had. Similarly, on the issue that he raised about in terms of the target for the build-up of reserves, should we conclude debt discussions earlier than anticipated, and therefore we have to pay, for debt services during the year? Do we have an adjuster in terms of the targets that we have set for reserve accumulation for 2024? So really, it's just to give you a flavor of some of the discussions that we have had over the last 2 weeks. Yes, George, the inflation target, if you heard me very loudly and clearly, is that we have not adjusted our NDA 15 plus or minus 2. We still think that this is within reach. We had expected that, would have had a continuous disinflation in terms of the path. But we saw what happened in March, which was consistent with the base effects from 2023. We think it's just a temporary development. The month-on-month increases in inflation are still on a downward trend, and we expect that in the second quarter of this year, we would resume the disinflation path, and therefore we haven't found it necessary to revise the targets for inflation for 2024. So we are on course.
Thank you very much, Governor. Indeed, in all senses of it, we are on course. We'll take a final round of questions. We're running out of time, so maybe just one or two. We're streaming live via the MOI Facebook, Bank of Ghana website, and our colleagues in Washington, D.C. at the IMF are also streaming this press conference. We've had a couple of questions come in via our MOF email, and we can take one question from there whilst we see if there's any additional question from here. So Francis Nto from the Ghana News Agency wants to ask, beyond the assurances, what pragmatic steps is the government taking to remain prudent with expenditure amidst the 2024 elections? So, Minister, this is going a step further to ask, what are the pragmatic steps that we are taking to hold the line on expenditure? We have one final question in the room.
Right, Minister, I want to find out.
Sorry, your name and your media.
My name is Obed. Yeah. I report for GH1 Television and Star
GH1,
FM.
thank you.
Are you able to quantify how much of a factor of freezing of our external debt has contributed to the outperformance of this microeconomic target that you mentioned in your presentation in terms of quantification? Are you able to quantify in terms of the freezing of our external debts?
Sorry, can you clarify your question? Please ask it again. Thank you.
So during your presentation, you mentioned that we outperformed our microeconomic targets. So I
macro,
yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I want to find out, are you able to quantify in terms of the freezing of our external debts, which has contributed to this outperforming of our macroeconomic targets?
Okay. So if I'm getting it correctly, are you asking what quantum of external debt has contributed to our DSA, essentially? Okay. Sorry. Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay. All right, we have one more question coming in from online, and this is concerning the World Bank. So the question is, what is the update on the World Bank financing support for Ghana in the wake of the impact assessment done by the ministry a few weeks ago? So any update on the World Bank financing support for Ghana after the impact assessment that was just completed? So, Minister, perhaps we can take the first question about the pragmatic steps regarding expenditure. We have been streaming live. Thank you to all our media partners who have paused their very important programming to stream this conference live. A special thanks to Joy, who paused their flagship news file program, producer Sami Odame, presenter Samson Ladi Anyenini. We are very grateful, and of course, George, we are fair to all of you. Several of you paused your programming to feature this very important press briefing. We do not take it lightly. Minister, we can start with the first question, perhaps. Thank you.
So thank you. Let me start with the question on the steps we are taking to address the expenditure side. As you already know, we have an arrears clearance plan that we have been implementing, and the arrears continue to be one of the major areas where expenditure suffers. And so if we are addressing that, then certainly it means we are committing less and less money relative to the arrears that have been accumulated over the years to finance these arrears. So the arrears clearance plan is being implemented. And some of the other things we are doing is to onboard more agencies to the gift mix. I think that the number has increased. More than 200 agencies are being onboarded to the gift mix system. And I believe you know what the gift mix system is, which requires us to ensure that people do not, or agencies do not embark on extra budgetary spending, or they do not embark on spending that is not approved. So that is also being implemented. And there are other expenditure control measures that we are implementing to ensure that we hold the line on expenditure. The other issue raised is about the external debt. If you want, let me give you the figures in terms of the size of the external debt. And so $5.1 billion with our bilateral creditors, $2.7 billion with other commercials, and then 13 billion with our Eurobond holders. And you will notice that even before the debt restructuring, the targets for the debt sustainability had been set at program commencement. The targets had been set. And so this debt suspension was already borne in mind at the time the targets were set. They were factored into that. So our performance is not as a result of the suspension, but as a result of the pragmatic policies and programs government has been implementing. And I hope this is okay for the questioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. There is one more question about the World Bank financing support on the back of the recent assessment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you also have been monitoring the news, you know that the World Bank has disbursed $300 million US dollars to Ghana as the first tranche of the DPO series. And we are negotiating to ensure that the DPO2 is also concluded so that we will get some other disbursements before the end of the year, hopefully another 300 million US dollars. But this requires the support of Parliament. You know, Parliament needs to support us to approve the DPO series as it did for the first disbursement. And I have no doubt that we will continue to collaborate with Parliament to get the support of Parliament to approve the DPO series, you know, to unlock the disbursements that will come from the World Bank to support further the structural reforms we are implementing as a government.
Thank you very much, Minister. Governor Dr. Addison would come to you for closing remarks, please.
Well, I'm not sure what to say at this stage. I think that we all agree that we are making a lot of progress. We've had a successful second review, at least as judged by the mission chief, Stefan. He has to go back to Washington and convince his management, and then the management would also convince the executive board, I believe sometime in June. And after that June board meeting, hopefully we'll get another disbursement of $360 million, which will come to us at the Bank of Ghana and help strengthen our reserves further. So I think it's all very good news for Ghana.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Stefan, final comment?
Well, no, I don't really have much to add other than indeed there is work upon us and to bring that review to the board, and there is work upon the government and the Bank of Ghana to continue to implement the program and ensure that the objectives are being met, and we'll continue to work very, very closely together to make sure that all of that happens.
Thank you, Stefan. And finally, Honorable Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam.
Well, mine is to express our gratitude again to all of you, the fund, the Bank of Ghana, and of course our media friends for the continuous collaboration we continue to enjoy from each other. I mean, I have no doubt that this country is on a good course. I am very confident that this economy is going to get stronger and stronger. But that will also require the sacrifices and the patience of our people. And therefore, I want to use this opportunity to call on Ghanaians to continue to support our efforts. Some of the reforms that we are implementing are biting. Some of them are really difficult. But I know that we will persevere together. We will lead together. And we will ensure that the benefits of the fiscal consolidation and the reforms we are pursuing will eventually come to the people of Ghana, bring significant relief to the people of Ghana, so that we can be counted once again as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. A fiat we have achieved several times under the presidency of President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. I also want to say that our success at reaching staff level agreement will not be taken for granted. We know that there is so much work to do, and we are committed to doing our part as a government to implement all these policies and programs so that particularly the poor, the vulnerable are protected. And this is why we intentionally negotiated certain interventions, social interventions in the program in order to ensure that those that will be affected negatively by the policies we are implementing are protected, so we can carry everybody along as a government. And so let me end it here by thanking all of you once again, and hoping that you will give this significant coverage for the people of Ghana and beyond to know the good work we are doing here. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I will not give report on the state of the economy, the monthly one for April. This will stand for that. And so the next time you see me giving a report will be May. unless there is an urgent issue that we need to communicate to you and to the people of Ghana. So God bless you all. God bless our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Before we leave, ladies and gentlemen, we started with a prayer, so we will end with a prayer. We have the honor of inviting the Honorable Minister for State, Honorable Mrs. Abna Osei Asare.